It was the middle of the night, that hour when even your thoughts whisper. I woke up to a knock at the door. At first, I thought I imagined it, but then it came again, even steady, familiar. My husband didn't stir. I threw on my robe and padded barefoot to the door. My heart was already sounding the alarm. When I opened it, I saw her. Sasha, my best friend from college. The one who held my hand when I gave birth to Zlata. The one who once told me, "You're the only family I have left." She stood there, eyes red, hair a mess, suitcase in hand. Not saying a word. I didn't hesitate. I opened the door and pulled her into a hug. She broke down right there, sobbing into my shoulder. "He kicked me out," she whispered, right in the middle of dinner, after 5 years. I wasn't enough. I stroked her back, and with each tear she shed, I felt heavier, and she lighter. My husband peeked out from the bedroom, yawning. "Who is it?" he asked. "It's Xusha," I said quietly. "She'll be staying with us for a few days. She's going through something." He nodded. Of course, let her stay. I didn't notice the way he looked at her. Not like a stranger, but like something curious. I set up the couch for her in the living room, brought her tea. She sipped it in silence, staring into space. "Wanna talk?" I asked softly. "Tomorrow," she said. "Tonight I just need to forget." I nodded. "You're safe here." That night, I lay next to my husband. He snored softly beside me, and I stared at the ceiling. For the first time in a long time, I wondered, do we even love each other anymore? When was the last time he looked at me with curiosity? When was the last time he touched me with desire? I shook the thoughts away. This wasn't about me. This was about her. I needed to be there for Xusha. The next morning, I woke up alone in bed. Laughter floated from the kitchen. I stepped out and froze. Xusha was sitting at the counter, wearing my robe, her face freshly made up. And my husband. He stood across from her, telling some story, eyes glowing with something I hadn't seen in years. They stopped talking when they saw me. "Sorry," Xusha smiled. "Didn't know you were still sleeping." "I wasn't," I said. "Just lying down." "We were making breakfast," he said. "Like the old days, remember?" "Of course," I replied. How could I forget? But something deep inside me already knew. Something was wrong. I didn't know what exactly. But that night, I let betrayal into my home. By the second day, she had made herself comfortable. Too comfortable. Xusha walked barefoot through the house, like it was hers. She wore my robes, used my shampoo, left traces of jasmine-scented steam in the bathroom, laughed at my husband's jokes like he was her personal comedian. And he came alive again. I watched them, and for the first time, I felt like the stranger in my own home. One morning, she picked up my favorite mug, the one that said "Wifey" in gold letters. "Don't look at me like that," she said, laughing. "I just grabbed the first one I saw. You don't mind, right?" "Of course not," I lied. But it wasn't about the mug. It was about the lines that were starting to blur between mine and hers. My husband was sweet to her. Too sweet. He brought her blankets, made her tea, listened to her vent while I put Zlata to bed. "She's just going through a lot," he told me one night. "It'll only be a couple of days. She'll bounce back." But those couple of days turned into weeks, and Xusha became part of the furniture. I started noticing things. One day I came home from work and saw them in the living room. She was lying on the couch, her legs across his lap. He was rubbing her foot, casual, but intimate. When I stepped in, he jerked his hand away. She laughed. "Relax, we're just watching a movie." "Sure," I nodded, but something shifted in me that day. Later that night, after everyone went to bed, I walked into the kitchen. There were 2 mugs on the table, still warm. One had cinnamon floating on top. He always adds cinnamon. I hate it, and I hadn't had coffee that night. So who else could it have been? If not the woman I had let into my home, and the man I married? The next morning, I couldn't find my favorite red sports bra. And then I saw it, under her shirt, peeking out. "Oh, I didn't know it was yours," she said sweetly. "I just thought it looked old." It wasn't old. It was mine. And now, it smelled like her. But the worst part, I didn't confront her. I didn't ask questions. I just waited. I waited for them to go too far. I waited for undeniable proof, even though my heart already knew. They had crossed the line a long time ago. That night, I saw her leave the bathroom, wearing his t-shirt, and he stood at the window, smoking, smiling at her, like I wasn't even there. I started listening, not because I wanted to, but because my gut told me something was happening when I wasn't looking. Sasha started spending a lot of time in the bathroom, sometimes right after him. Sometimes it felt like they were in there together. One evening, I came home early. There were his sneakers on the porch. The bathroom window was fogged up, and then I heard it. Laughter. Hers. I stepped inside. The bathroom door wasn't closed all the way. Water was running, and I heard footsteps, more than one pair. I froze. "Hello," I called. Everything went still. "I'm in here," she shouted a second later. "I'll be out soon." But her voice, it sounded startled, like she'd been caught. 5 minutes later, she emerged. In my bath towel, hair dripping, skin glowing. She looked me right in the eyes. Not scared. Not ashamed. Sorry. I was in there forever. I just needed to relax. "Of course," I said. "You're at home." And saying that hurt me more than I expected. Later that night, my husband came to bed with wet hair. "You took a shower?" I asked. He blinked. "Yeah, just a quick rinse, downstairs in the laundry sink." "The laundry sink?" I repeated. He nodded too quickly, too casually. The next morning, I went to clean the bathroom, and I saw them. 2 sets of wet footprints on the tile. One big, one small. They led from the shower to the cabinet with the towels. I knew. They had been in there, together. I stood there staring at the floor, but I felt nothing. No rage, no heartbreak, just cold, like someone had cut me out of my own life. That night, I heard them whispering again. I crept down the hall and stopped near the kitchen. "Do you think she suspects?" she asked. "I don't know," he said. "She doesn't say anything. She just looks." "That's worse," she whispered. "I know." I walked back to the bedroom, sat on the edge of the bed, and stared at my reflection in the mirror. Bags under my eyes, shoulders slumped, and for the first time I realized betrayal doesn't always scream. Sometimes it stands quietly in your hallway. Later that night, I got up for water and saw him standing outside her bedroom door, just standing there. Then he pushed it open and walked in, and it wasn't even locked. I don't know why I decided to come home early. Maybe my heart knew something my brain still refused to admit. I told them I'd be late, that I had a headache and needed to stay at work a little longer. But instead, I turned around and drove home. When I walked in, I heard music playing, something soft, jazzy, with an old record crackle, and laughter. Her laughter. I stepped into the hallway and stood still. Sasha was perched on the arm of the couch, wearing a black dress. Short, tight, and clearly without a bra. My husband was sitting on the floor, wine glass in hand, laughing, looking up at her like she was the most fascinating thing in the universe. Like I used to be, 10 years ago. They didn't notice me at first. And then he reached up. He tucked a strand of her hair behind her ear. Slowly, gently, like she might disappear. She didn't flinch. She leaned in, just a little. Their faces were inches apart. Breath against breath. And then, he stopped. "I can't," he whispered. "Why?" she whispered back. He stood up, walked to the kitchen, poured more wine. I stepped back into the hallway and made noise on purpose, jingled my keys, opened the front door loudly. When I walked in again, they were sitting apart, like nothing had happened. "Hey," she smiled. "You're home early?" "Yeah," I said calmly. "Plans changed." "Perfect timing," he added. "We just started a movie." I nodded, sat down next to him on the couch. He stiffened, and for the first time, I wondered what would happen if I just left the room and never came back. Later that night, I heard them again. He left our bedroom. She stepped out of hers. They met near the kitchen. I stayed in the shadows and listened. Do you think she knows? She sees everything. She just doesn't say it. Silence. Then, her voice trembling. "I'm pregnant." Everything stopped inside me. I didn't go in. I didn't make a sound. I just stood there, pressed against the wall, trying to remember how to breathe. I stopped sleeping. Somewhere between the hallway, the kitchen, and their whispered words, sleep gave up on me. I was always listening. For footsteps. For lies. For the sound of something breaking. Like my own heart. Sasha started acting different. Quiet. Detached. She sat for hours, holding her belly, sipping tea, staring into nothing. I knew those movements. I'd done the same when I was pregnant with Zlata. But no one said anything. Not her. Not him. It was like we were all dancing around the bomb, pretending we didn't hear it ticking. One morning they went out. Groceries, they said. I stayed behind. I walked into the bathroom, started to clean, opened the top shelf, and there it was. A pregnancy test. 2 bold pink lines. And yesterday's date on the box. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just stood there, like a statue made of disbelief. This wasn't just cheating. This was a life. A child. Conceived in my house. In my marriage. That night, I said nothing. They unpacked groceries. Cooked together. Laughed too loudly. And I watched. Like a ghost in my own story. Later, I heard her on the phone, whispering in the bathroom. "No, she hasn't said anything yet. I don't know what she's waiting for. You said you were going to leave her. I can't raise this baby alone." Then, silence. And then his voice muffled, but clear. "I'm confused." I walked back to my room, sat on the bed, and finally, I cried. Not because of the betrayal, but because I was so tired of holding it all in. The next day, I took the test, put it in an envelope, wrote a note on the front. "Congratulations. Be sure to tell the child where they were conceived." I left it on their pillow. I cooked dinner with a strange kind of calm, like someone preparing for a funeral, not a meal. I chopped vegetables like I was severing emotional ties, set the table just right, lit candles, opened a bottle of wine she never drinks. But tonight, she would. He arrived late from work. She stepped out of the bedroom, fully dressed. Makeup perfect, wearing the same black dress she wore the night they almost kissed. They both acted polite. Too polite. As if we were strangers having dinner for the first time. Zlata chattered happily between bites. And I just watched them. Watched him smile at her. Watched her avoid my eyes. Then Zlata looked at me and asked, "Is Auntie Sasha staying with us forever?" I didn't flinch. "I think Sasha will be moving out soon," I said. He looked up. She looked down. "Why?" Zlata asked. "She's nice. Sometimes, even nice people do terrible things," I replied. Zlata blinked. Are you talking about Dad? He coughed. She froze. I reached for the envelope, the one with the pregnancy test inside, and placed it gently in the center of the table. Silence. Congratulations, I said. You're going to be parents. It's not what you think, he began. It's exactly what I think, I interrupted. And do you know what hurts the most? Neither of them answered. That I don't even hate you. Not you. Not her. I just feel nothing. Sasha's eyes filled with tears. He reached for her hand. Right in front of me. That was when I struck. Not with fists, but with truth. Are you even sure it's his? I asked her. She flinched. He turned to her, and for the first time, doubt flickered across his face. She snapped. You always thought you were better than me. You act so perfect, so selfless. But you were empty. He held me when I was falling apart. He held you, I said slowly, between my sheets. Silence. A silence louder than any scream. You never knew how to be a mother, she whispered. He stood up suddenly. Enough. I stood too. No, you've both said enough. I walked to the bedroom, grabbed a suitcase, packed my things, took Zlata's hand, and walked out the door. He didn't follow. She didn't stop me. 3 months have passed, long enough for silence to stop hurting and start healing. I moved into a small apartment. Plain, simple mine. Every mug, every blanket, every breath in that place belonged to me. Even the pain. It was honest now. He never called. Sometimes he sent messages. Are you okay? We should talk. But I had nothing left to say. To someone who never tried to stop me from leaving. I heard about Ksasha through a mutual friend. She was still pregnant. He was still with her. But things weren't perfect. He stayed out late. She barely left the house. Their bond was built on betrayal, not love. One afternoon, Zlata asked me, will Auntie Ksasha ever come visit again? I sat down beside her. No, sweetheart, she won't. Is she bad? She asked. I thought for a moment. She was lost, and I was too kind to see it. I started living again, little by little. Morning yoga, quiet coffee, weekend trips with Zlata. Laughter that didn't feel forced. I stopped making other people the center of my world and made room for just us, me and my daughter. One day I saw them at the mall. He was holding shopping bags. She was holding her belly. They didn't see me, and for the first time, I didn't feel pain or rage, just peace. They had each other. I had myself. And you know what? That felt like a much better deal. I remembered that night, when I opened the door, thinking I was saving her. But the truth is, I needed to save myself. And now I have. I gave her shelter, and she left me scars. But you know what scars do? They close wounds, and make the skin tougher.